I'd love to double click on that. How do you think about maintaining the voice of the customer?
It's by interacting with them. This is at the end of the day, with all the tech we have, it's still very much a people business. So you have to communicate with them, sit with your customers physically, like we are, talk to them and understand what their pains are, understand what they're worried about, where they see over the next 5-year horizon, try to predict that and try to decide if that's something you can get into and help them with. So it's really about that relationship with the customer and building that trust so you can learn.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Built Not Born, the startup go-to-market podcast by Venture Guides. I'm Sage Nye, and around here, we believe that great companies are built, not born, one smart decision at a time. Each week, we take you through real conversations with founders, investors, and go-to-market experts on what it really takes to land customers and scale your startup. Now, let's get to work. Welcome to Built Not Born. I'm Sage Nye, venture partner at Venture Guides. Today, I am honored to welcome an accomplished leader in the technology and cybersecurity space, Naj Husain.
Hi there.
Naj is a 4-time successful founder and currently the co-founder and CEO of Elastio, a company at the forefront of ransomware recovery assurance. With over 25 years of experience building and scaling high-growth venture-backed software companies, Naj has established himself as a proven innovator in IT infrastructure security and storage. At Elastio, Naj has applied his deep expertise to address one of the most pressing challenges facing businesses today, ensuring clean, reliable data recovery in the face of increasingly sophisticated ransomware attacks. Elastio's platform is built to provide continuous data integrity validation, empowering organizations to detect hidden threats and recover with confidence. Naj, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So to start, we would love for you to share some of your personal background and stories with our listeners.
So I go back a long way. I graduated from University of Maryland back in 1984 in computer science. My first coding language was COBOL using punch cards, right on a UNIVAC, right? So it goes way back. So I started there, graduated, started my first company when I was 26 or so, and it was on the Deck VMS platform, and it was really around storage. My first job out of school taught me initially there's a lot of room for optimizing storage back then. So the company I worked for was nice enough to lend me access to the machine, the computers, because they're very expensive back then. So I was able to start by writing my first product. So that was the beginning. And that company became a company called W. Quinn. That was how I first ended up partnering with Ben Nye, actually. That was our first interaction because his company bought that company from Precise. He was at Precise back in 2000 or so, 2001. So that company did very well. It was a storage play focused on Deck VMS. Then we moved over to Windows. And we were one of the first Windows device driver products out there. We worked with the early founders at Microsoft on Windows NT in 1995, 96, 97. And we wrote some very innovative tools around storage. There was quota management, basically controlling how much space individual applications could use. That did very well. Microsoft OEM that platform. Part of that OEM ended up in the Windows OS, right? They used that as part of their disk management solution. And then we sold to primarily enterprises at that point. So that company was acquired by Precise Software in 2000. So I worked there for a few years. We then sold that company to Veritas. So I ended up in Veritas next. Veritas was an interesting place. They're a big storage company at the time. This is circa 2003 or so. Very popular company at the time, doing a lot of backup and storage-related tools. So post that, I thought of an idea. Maybe there was a good way to innovate around that backup and recovery space and rethink about backup in terms of the application. So let's fast forward to the application and focus on making sure the application was recoverable versus just the data. So I founded Aperture in 2007 to attack that problem. It was the same time around when Veeam was founded. So we were attacking it a little different mode, but different approach, but we were attacking it from the application space. They were attacking it from the VM space. So both good approaches. So the fun thing about that company is we had to innovate around providing the ability to not only capture the data really quickly, so we had kernel code to do that, so we could capture it. And we also had to capture it in a way that was safe for the application to recover from. So it had to be consistent. So in those days, it was tricky. So we had to write very innovative code to make that work. The second thing we did to tie that together was that when we took the snapshot, we inspected the contents of it. So we knew exactly at the time of the snapshot whether it was recoverable or not. You didn't have to wait to recovery time to figure it out. So the customers love that because in those days on the Windows platform, typically it was Exchange or SQL. And there would be disk problems. They would fail. The recoveries would fail a lot. The backups would fail, but you wouldn't know. It's blind to you. So you're depending on this recovery, this backup, and it's not good.
I'm sensing a theme here.
Yeah, so that's a problem. So we ended up writing code that was highly optimized, but it was data integrity code. So once we took the snap, we could interrogate it to make sure the integrity was good. So we knew a priori if it was recoverable. So customers love that because it saved their job, quite frankly. Back then, it was Exchange and SQL. Everybody ran on Exchange at that point. And the administrators were like, this thing fails too much, I lose my job. So we spent a lot of time making that work, and that ended up being a big hit. So that company is very well. It grew to 50 million really quickly in run rate. And it was acquired by Dell in 2012. We were outpacing Veeam and most of the other backup players at the time. But it was a very transactional business. And it was driven by the customer because we interviewed many customers. We knew storage and security from the previous companies, but the pain was, how do I get my application back and how do I get it back fast? Right? These are mission critical apps. From those experiences, that's how Aperture ended. And then fast forward, we did a company called Cloudistics in 2013. That was a cloud platform, did very well. We did a large OEM with one of the top 5 infrastructure companies. And that was acquired by Fungible, and now it's at Microsoft. So that ended up there. So come back to 2020, through that experience at Cloudistics and Aperture and Cloudistics, ransomware started to be a problem, right? So the issue with ransomware is it's pervasive, but it's not just an application level problem. It's a business problem because it brings businesses down. So we said, I got together with Adam and Trinity, and we started thinking about, hey guys, we have a very good experience. We understand data. We understand security. Now we have this prevalent ransomware problem. How can we help customers save themselves from being attacked by ransomware? So we felt we were uniquely qualified to attack the problem. But we didn't know yet. We just thought that, okay, we have the pedigree to do it. Let's go and try it. So we started Elastio. We funded it personally. And we started to figure out how to understand ransomware and how it impacts the data, because that's the key. So now you have to be able to understand the patterns, the behaviors, right? Where do you start? So it was a huge problem. So we spent literally 3 years reverse engineering all the known ransomware out there since 2014. And we built a deterministic model based around that. So what that means is any known ransomware, our engines can interrogate the data and tell you if it's one of those that we've determined. There's 2,300 families. So, and it's over 10,000 variants. So we can deterministically tell you that this is infected with this ransomware, with this pedigree, this date of ransomware. So the next thing you'd want to get into was thinking about, how do you find 0 day, right? So at the end of the day, the Fed is $1 trillion business running out there right now. So they had PhDs going after this, trying to figure out how to break into companies and encrypt the data, right? So we went after the 0 day problem. So we just started attacking the problem and then working with customers and figuring out how to get in front of them and solve this problem. So that's the story into Elastio.
What's so amazing about your story, from the outside looking in, it seems like you just can't sit still and starting companies for the sake of being at the cutting edge. But the thing that comes through in everything you were sharing is it's actually less about the fact that you can't sit still and more about the fact that because you're so ingrained in the space, you're hearing from customers that the world is changing and they need things. And it almost sounds like you can't help yourself. You hear a problem for customers and you need to solve it.
Right. That's interesting because the challenge though in that concept is, because I feel that, is you got to pick the right challenge, right? The things that you can attack that customers value. And you made a great point that you got to always start with the customer. You got to understand it, what they want, and you got to build for that.
So I'd love to double click on that. How do you think about maintaining the voice of the customer?
It's by interacting with them. This is at the end of the day, but all the tech we have, it's still very much a people business. So you have to communicate with them, sit with your customers physically, like we are, talk to them and understand what their pains are, understand what they're worried about, where they see over the next 5-year horizon, try to predict that and try to decide if that's something you can get into and help them with. So it's really about that relationship with the customer and building that trust so you can learn.
And if I remember correctly, at Elastio, you even built an advisory board with your customers and with people who are so ingrained in the space that they feel the pain. Not every startup of your size has done that. So how do you think about when the right time is to build, let's call it a cab, and what that cab looks like?
Yeah, so it was the right time for us because we're in this space with ransomware. Everybody's scared of it. It's a huge problem, as we all know. So what we decided to do as we created our customers, we have our first base of enterprise customers now. And what we've learned is from them is they're looking for an external voice. I can talk to them all day long. I can sit with them and have a discussion, but they want some outside voices that believe what we believe and that can corroborate our statements, right? What we're up to, efficacy and our engines and how our approach and all that. So what I did was one of our co-founders, Todd, helped us out quite a bit on this, is we met with some of the folks from Secret Service. So it turns out many of the ex-Secret Service teams, they did a lot of fraud detection, FinServe, all that. They researched ransomware. They negotiated ransomware for the FBI. They did all that work. So these guys they're in the know. They understand ransomware much better than most people do. So a lot of these folks, as they retired, they went into the private markets. So they either consult for companies or they're CISOs at large banks, et cetera. So they're very trusted. So we built a community of them. We have 6 now on the board that are very highly educated in this space. They understand it totally. And they've lived it. They've seen the pain. They've worked with big customers to get them out of the mess. And they've negotiated with the bad guys. They get it all. So they've been invaluable, actually. So we started with the 6. So we interviewed them. We told them our story. They love what we're up to. Hey, why didn't we think of that? I wish we had that 5 years ago. The whole gap around making sure that the data is recoverable, right? So I'll just make one point about that. At the end of the day, the ransomware guys that are out, they need leverage. And the way they get leverage is by compromising your recovery. So if you don't have a recovery option, you got to work with them. They have leverage. That means you can't get your data back. So if you can somehow impact their leverage by ensuring that the customer can recover, that reduces your risk as a business, right? Because I always know I have a clean recovery option. It's provable recovery. So if you can tell me, if I'm on a board of an enterprise and I have a ransomware readiness mandate, which most do now, I want to be able to go to my security team or my infrastructure team, and I want them to be able to tell the board, hey, Mr. Board or Mrs. Board team, I can recover this business within 6 hours. I know that. So if something bad happens right now, I got a 6-hour window I can recover. So that's a risk that they may or may not want to tolerate. So they may want to shrink that window, or 6 hours is good. I feel good about that.
So it feels like, with that point about leverage, that this is a product that anyone could need and does need, but maybe some need more than others. And I know as CEO, you've been really focused on focusing your team on one ICP and sort of repeatability and focus. Can you share a little bit about what that process has been like?
Yeah. So the pain point for what we do right now is most seen in the regulated industries. They have deep pockets and the bad guys attack them first. So they're exposed the most. So just understand, if the bad guys want to get in, they're going to get in. So you can have all the perimeter tools you want, but then you get in. So the best thing companies can do is create a layered defense strategy, including from the perimeter down all the way through to the data, to make sure that every gap is tightened up. So we are the gap around the recovery. So we make sure that that data is clean and recoverable at all times. So many security teams don't see that as a gap yet, right? They have perimeter right now. They have their endpoint. They have their CNAP product. That's good enough. But clearly it's not, because companies are getting attacked every day. We see from our major cloud providers that we partner with, 500 new ransomware incidents a week.
Wow.
500 a week coming in. So this is not slowing down just because it's so profitable for the bad guys. So that regulated industry now becomes a target for us. So we said, okay, let's start with that most riskful area. And now let's go figure out who to speak to in there. So what we found is that we look for companies, for example, that have a board mandate around ransomware readiness. So that's a mandate we look for. Then we look for some traders. Have they been attacked by ransomware? So it turns out that's difficult to find, right? So because
Probably don't want to raise your hand up.
that's right. They're not going to raise their hand. So we know that the percentage is in the 70% that companies get attacked, but many are silent about it. So in some cases, they provide in their S1 and their documentation, in their annual reports, whatever. So we look in there for those. So that's one of the triggers we look for. The other trigger we look for is they have a resilience team. Because we're all about making sure we recover. That's typically part of the business continuity, the resilience team. So we look for that. We also look for companies where there's a high change rate. They left the company. So that could indicate there was an issue. So usually post-attack, some of the security team may be vulnerable and they leave, right? Things like that. So we look for as many of those triggers as we can. And the team is 100% focused on the regulated industry ICP, in particular financial services, looking for those mandates, finding the triggers that we look for. Being hit by ransomware is a trigger, and targeting those businesses. And we were maniacal on that until we get our first set of customers that we can learn and live from. Then we can move on to expand it into other verticals. But right now we're learning so much because we're so tied and focused. So we understand the business now. We're talking to board members now. We're talking to CISOs, CTOs, CIOs about this problem. And now it's starting to resonate. One of our big partners, Amazon, they recommend us all their AWS backup infrastructure. Anybody leveraging AWS backup for immutability and so on, they recommend Elastio. So they're bringing us into many, many large customers as well. So it's starting to resonate now. And our messaging is focused on that ICP, and that's starting to help because we tie that in with Amazon. So all those things start to accelerate your traction.
That makes a lot of sense. And conceptually, this idea of regulated industries, deep pockets, to your point, like who are the most vulnerable, that's it. But starting with a blank slate can be really hard to eventually figure that out. How do you have confidence in your ICP?
Yeah, it took a while, right? This didn't happen yesterday. So, you can do the spray and pray model, right? Just go out and hit everybody. So we started to figure it out. We did that. We looked at large markets, different markets. And it turned out that we weren't really great at any one of them, understanding the customer. That's the issue. And we have a relatively small team. So now you're looking at 5 verticals. How do you even understand that? Because they each have different dependencies, right? So then we just zeroed in on the most vulnerable ones, which are regulated industries. Then we zeroed in on the financial services. So that's a big market for that. And now we really understand it. Soon we're going to go into the other 5, right? There's many more to get into.
Yeah.
So we'll move. But once we have a good foothold here and get our base of solid customers, then we can move on.
And how do you maintain alignment across your team to make sure that they're not spreading themselves across 5?
It's a constant effort, inspection. I mean, you got to continually inspect what's going on and coach, right? That you want to coach people to just make sure they stay focused because it's seductive, right? Now I got a deal over here, different market, however that may work. You want to try to rein that in and just stay the course right now.
And it strikes me that as you start to do this pattern recognition, it both helps with new customers or prospects, but also your current install base, because you can start to learn across everything that you're hearing and feed it in. So once you sign up a customer and you're trying to make them successful, has any of the ICP work sort of fed into the ways that you're interacting with your current customers?
Absolutely. So we learn a ton from our customers. So, and that's quite frankly how you further enhance your ICP. Right, in terms of going deeper into your ICP. Because remember, it's all about customer value for sure, but understanding the customer, really understanding them. So we don't focus too much on the competition. They can do what they want. We focus really heavy on what the customer needs. It's a maniacal focus on that customer. So we don't create features for feature's sake. We create features when they're asked for by the customer, and we validate it with the customers. We let they're the ones that drive the business. So by doing that, now we have much more alignment with the customer. Now we get a great reference. We get expansion. We get references into other businesses now from that company. So all those things are starting to happen now. So it's because we're focused on the customer and understanding them and developing features that they need because we're learning together. We're in this together. It's a partnership.
That makes a lot of sense. I wish we could keep talking about this all day, but I do want to make sure we have time for we call it our rapid go-to-market execution section. And the goal is we hear a lot of questions from founders, CEOs, and people trying to build go-to-market teams. With all of your experience and with your focus on the customer, I'd love to be able to ask you some of the ones that we get inbound and then give some advice to our listeners as we're going. So the first one is, what is one of the biggest challenges that you see go-to-market teams facing in their early days? And do you have any advice on how to solve?
Yes, I think a couple of things. One is dilution, meaning you're trying to spread yourself too thin across too many segments. So initially you want to focus your energy on one segment. It may not be the right one. It's okay, but focus your energy and understand it. Decide if it's right or not. And if it's not the right segment, move to the next one, but do it collectively. Do it in a focused effort. If you spread everybody on different paths, you won't learn from each other. So you got to keep it as a team, in my opinion. So it's a team exercise. You're learning, you're living and breathing as a team, and you die as a team and you win as a team. It's the way it is. And then you move on and move to the next one.
Awesome. And how do you think about the types of problems when it's better to slow down and be intentional versus move really fast and just like put a Band-Aid on it for now and figure out how to solve it later?
That's a tricky one, right? So typically when it comes to strategic decisions, you want to settle, slow down, make sure you have the right strategy in place. And that goes for both the go-to-market side and on the product side. It's very important. So strategically on the product side, it's my philosophy that the technology, you have to have very strong core IP as a foundation of the business, in my opinion. So all my companies had very good, strong core IP. And that pays tons of dividends over time because it's differentiated. It's hard to replicate. It gives you more breathing room for the competitors to come in. You need for them to catch up. And once you find that core ICP strategically, then you can continue to build on it, build on it, and build on it, expand it. So that foundationally, you want to make sure your strategy is tight. Then there's certain areas that you need to skirt, right? You may have to, you put a Band-Aid on it. So things like, on the go-to-market side, maybe on the pricing, you're not quite right. Let's just put a Band-Aid on a customer, and satisfy the customer, learn from it, and then apply it to the next set of customers, for example. So you just got to balance that. But the core foundation is from a strategy perspective, the teams must be aligned. They must be working on the same path, on the same problem, so they can learn, right? And they can adapt.
Pulling together that with something you said earlier, which was the focusing on the customer, not on all the noise around competition and analyst reports and all of that. It sounds like a huge reason why you care so much about IP and being intentional about that is because that's what gives you the space and the breathing room and frankly, the time to stay focused on the customer and not have to think about everything else happening.
That's correct. That's very helpful. So whenever I found a new company, we start with the IP, make sure you spend a lot of effort and money to make sure that IP is differentiated.
Makes a lot of sense. This one has to do with fundraising. When you think about fundraising and term sheets, how do you think about the highest price term sheet or other things that firms offer?
Well, the highest price term sheet can be seductive, right? But don't succumb to that. I think you have to really think about startups are difficult, right? There's going to be bad days and great days, but you have to be resilient and you have to have the attitude you're never going to give up. I just heard Elon Musk say it's like eating glass. Sometimes it is, but you got to dig deep. And the thing is, when you partner with a venture partner, they have to have the same mentality. They got to dig deep. They have to be pit bulls. They have to be in the trenches with you because you're going to be in the trenches. That's just the way it is with a startup. So you know that going in. So you need a partner that's going to be there with you and not give up and add value, not just criticize, help you figure out how to get through the problem. You need a team player. So that's really important. That's worth more than money.
It strikes me that you and Ben, between Precise buying your first company, you and Ben have done 4 together now at this point.
Yeah.
Hopefully that means he's been a good partner.
Yeah, no, he's great. And I think he's one of them, right? And the team he puts together was very good. He was at Bain Capital. He had a great team there. We still work with some of the guys at Bain Capital. We've done 3 deals with Bain, and they're in Elastio as well. And then now the Ben's Venture Guides here has been awesome. And of course, he fits that profile. I mean, he's right in there. He's in the weeds. He never gives up. Never gives up. So he'll always fight with you, which is, that means everything.
And then the last question is, as you think about building out customer advisories, what is one of the critical things that you look for in terms of people that you invite to join your advisory board?
Yeah, it's a good question. So first, super high integrity. So they have to demonstrate that they have the pedigree. They understand customer relationships. They can speak to customers with authority and respect. And obviously, the knowledge of the domain is key. Most of the guys that'll do advisory board members, they have a bit of entrepreneurial spirit to them. They want to participate and understand leading edge tech. We have some CISOs on the board as well that have that. They just want to understand what the latest cutting edge technology looks like, want to participate in that. Some want to do that as well as meet some of the investment community and understand what other products are out there in the field as well. And they want to expand their networks. So we can help them with that part. They can help us in front of customers and with domain expertise. So it's a win-win. So you have to find that win-win. But at the end of the day, it's a personal relationship. You got to like the person, high integrity. You don't have to be able to work with them. It's just like bringing someone else on your staff.
Based on everything you've said, both in this session and previously, it sounds like you've got a really incredible group. Before we wrap, I do have a couple reflective questions for you. What is the leadership lesson that you wish more founders understood as they grow their business?
It's a good question. Disclosure sets you free. So full disclosure. So things are going bad, things are going great, but full disclosure. Follow that rule. I'm relentless with it. It's a very good thing.
Radical transparency.
Yes.
Naj, where can people learn more about you and your work with Elastio?
Elastio.com is a good one. LinkedIn, we write a lot of blogs and put a lot of information about Elastio out there. We do webcasts, so they're available online as well. We do conferences. We just finished up with a roundtable with AWS and NetApp in New York. You're welcome to join those as well. And they're available on our website, and we do a lot of promotions around it.
Fantastic. Naj, thank you.
Thank you.
I hope you listeners have enjoyed the discussion about being maniacally customer focused and this compulsive need to always make sure you're staying at the cutting edge, but for the sake of the customer. So thank you so much. And thanks for joining us on Built Not Born, the podcast where we break down the real stories of startup execution. If you enjoyed this conversation with Naj, be sure to subscribe and leave a review. And if you're a founder looking for guidance on scaling your startup, check out ventureguides.com. Thank you so much. Now let's get to work. Built Not Born, the Startup Go-to-Market podcast, is brought to you by Venture Guides. To find out more about Venture Guides and how our Venture Capital Plus guiding model helps early-stage startups build scalable go-to-market strategies and grow faster, visit ventureguides.com. And then make sure to search for Built Not Born in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube Podcasts, or anywhere else that you listen. Hit subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes, and we look forward to building with you. On behalf of the team here at Venture Guides, thanks for listening. Until next time, keep building.